Hey, Midgardians, I'm Clay.
And I'm Joe.
Welcome to That Midgard Show. This is a podcast where we talk about the Midgard campaign setting published by our friends at koboldpress. In this episode, we're going to talk about 3 more Zobeck districts: the Collegium, the Gear District, and Lower Zobeck, which in my opinion are some of the most interesting districts of Zobeck.
Yep, for sure. And many of our viewers and listeners are anxious for us to get to other parts of Midgard, and we totally hear you, but we want to spend a bit more time in Zobeck because this is where Midgard all began, and it's where many new GMs and players start their adventures. So we're going to do 2 more episodes in Zobeck and then move on. And at some point, we may come back to Zobeck with a special guest to talk about how Zobeck evolved over the various editions and maybe talk of some guilds and cults and other stuff like that.
Yeah, so in this episode, we're going to skip our Adventurers Recap and Creature Showcase just to give a bit more time to wrapping up Zobeck. So let's start off. Let's get into the Collegium, Joe.
Yeah, for sure. So I love the Collegium. I think this is one of the probably 2 favorite districts of mine in all of Zobeck, along with the Gear District. The Collegium District has that real kind of college town feel to it, in my opinion. This is where the Arcane Collegium resides. It's one of the main magic schools of Midgard, an essential location to Zobeck is. Besides this school, there is Temple of Lada, there is the Hedgehog Tavern, there is the Brotherhood of the Alchemists. So there's a lot going on in this district. So we'll kick it off with probably the most important location in the district, which is the Arcane Collegium. And this is an interesting place. It's kind of a compound in Zobeck. There's a few entrances to it. And if you look in the Zobeck Gazetteer or the Clockwork City book, some of these descriptions here compared to the map sometimes maybe don't match up perfectly. So don't lose your mind when you're reading these descriptions and you look at the map and like, that doesn't quite make sense. Sometimes you go back, you look at the old map from the Pathfinder days, and it might match up a little better, but just kind of go with it and make it work for your game. But there's 2 real entrances to the Arcane Collegium. There's one that comes out of Arcane Square, which a lot of the students and stuff will argue that it's actually more of not quite a square, but a what do you call it? The slant, like a slanted square. Trapezoid, yeah, thank you. It's more of a trapezoid. Or if you look at the new map, right? If you look at the 5th edition map, it's a circle on the map. So that's one of those like little inconsistencies. But it's not too far from the Hedgehog Tavern. There's also the Watergate entrance, which is like a dock and a set of stairs that kind of go up to, from a pier. However, again, if you look at the map, you'll see they have the Watergate marked as going to the Kobold Ghetto. So do with that what you will. There is an entrance off of the river into the Collegium. The Collegium itself doesn't really admit many visitors. Most people are going to come there, either are working there, they're students, or they're people seeking some kind of help from the Collegium, be that some kind of arcane knowledge or something else. So generally, it's not like people just stroll in, to the Collegium and walk around the grounds. That's not something that generally happens. So the Collegium itself, like I said, is kind of a compound. There's a couple of interior courtyards. It's actually protected by like gargoyles and clockwork traps. There's even some undead that are controlled by some of the masters of the Collegium that will help protect the grounds. And then as far as the way it's kind of governed, there are several masters. The main one being Guildmaster Clockwork Mage Orlando, who we talked about in the past when we talked about the city's councils themselves, as he is also kind of sits on that. And he was the one who we said was kind of involved with a mistress from another country that some people don't quite trust. And he's been somewhat distracted in his duties as of late. The others that also run the show there are a master of necromancer named Conrad von Eberfeld. There's a master illusionist named Aurelia Scarpati, a master diviner named Rudwin Whitestone. And then there are the position of the master summoner and the master of stars and shadows that's vacant right now. They were previously held by Lenana Thorne and Sorel of Morgal. And Mistress Thorne was actually recently murdered, and Master Sorel retired to the mountains. So those positions, as of now, are left vacant. So you can always use that. And maybe if you're playing at a higher level, somebody's seeking to kind of gain one of those positions in your party, you can always do something like that with it. Then the Collegium itself has about 24 apprentices studying there under the masters. There's also, that includes those students consist of kobolds, tieflings, dwarves, humans. And then you have a staff of about 40, including alchemists, scribes, maids, cooks, chamberlains, language tutors, arcane tutors, clockworkers, even a priest of the gear goddess. So there is a lot kind of going on there, a lot of people involved all there. So the Collegium itself is a super cool place. If you have a wizard or a sorcerer in the party, they may be seeking to go there, maybe get tutored there, things like that. There's a lot you can really do with an arcane school in your games. And the Collegium, funny enough, there are several schools in Midgard. The Collegium is kind of considered one of the stranger ones. It's not your typical school. They deal with some of the stranger magics and things like that. I know in my group, we have somebody who is more focused in ley lines and ley magic, and that's not something they really touch much on at the Arcane Collegium, but he's going to go there and check it out anyways. But just kind of keep in mind that this is a school in Zobeck, the Clockwork City, and clockwork magic there is very prominent. So if you are interested in that clockwork magic, this is the school for them to go to. But yeah, I think it's a kind of a cool place. I don't know, have you used it much in your games at all, Clay?
Yeah, always try to get the players into the Collegium as much as I can. Like you mentioned earlier, it is not easy to get in. You've got to have a reason to be there. So you either got to sneak in or figure out a clever way to get past the guards, because there are enchantments all over the place. Everything is trapped. Even the Steam Gate, which is leads up from the river, it's slippery stairs, traps all throughout, and also the school is not super big. You know, there's a small population of students and an even smaller population of faculty, so it's manageable. It's not like Hogwarts, although there's no reason why you can't make it as big as Hogwarts. You know, it's a school of magic. Could be bigger on the inside.
It's Doctor Who.
Yeah, Doctor Who. But it's very manageable, and it's very tough to get in. Right. I used it in a couple of campaigns to offer the PCs a means to glean additional information. So in the case of Courts of the Shadow Fae, they had to figure out a way to get to the Shadow Roads. At the time, the Master of Stars and Shadows was there, you know, Sariel. And I used him as a way for the PCs to get information on how to access a door. A lot of knobs you can turn and levers you can pull. This is not a lot's written. This is a great place that you can make your own. You can make it bigger or smaller. Last episode, I talked about a new wizard who joined the faculty with his shark bowl ooze, you know, as a tank in there, you know. So it's also featured in some of the Pathfinder adventures around searching for the Strauss Library. There was a member of the Collegium who disappeared, and the PCs were hired to try to find out what happened to that person. So it's your opportunity to do what you will.
Yeah, there's an adventure in the Clockwork book too that was originally published in a Warlock layer called Death of the Mage. That could be another kind of foot in the door to get in there. Kind of, it starts off in the Hedgehog Tavern, which we'll talk about in a bit. But you know, you do some help for some mages there, and that could be your foot in the door to get into the Collegium and, you know, make some friends there, get some help there. So there's a lot of, you know, content I feel that's out there around the Collegium itself. So well worth checking into and definitely putting into your games if magic is something you're looking to explore more of. What else is in the Collegium? Like, there's a great bookstore.
Yeah, every college town has their bookstores, and Zobeck is no different. Tucked in the alley, just around the bend of a curving street, is a bookshop called the Book Fetish. Now, the name is a double entendre, and I will get to that in just a minute. This bookshop caters to a scholarly and refined crowd. The shop is surprisingly roomy. Bookshelves are crammed full of books. There's tables and chairs that fill the center of the room. You can probably put in a coffee bar if you want. There's a horseshoe-shaped counter with glass-fronted cupboards that sits just to the right of the door, and it's always tended by a young woman. And the fetish does keep slightly irregular hours, but it usually opens up around mid-morning. Still probably too early for many students, and they stayed open late as a place to hang out. The customers see it simply as a cozy shop that often stocks the right items, but perhaps charges too much. But a closer examination of the stock and the staff begins to reveal the secret of the fetish's popularity. And this is kind of where I get into the double entendre. The shop is a front. Yeah, the shop is a front. It is a proverbial adult bookstore that has a special counter furthest from the door, tucked close to a wall, and its shelves are full of various herbs and objects for the bedroom. There's always a polite female staff occasionally there to help you find that special item.
They sell blue pills.
Yeah. Now, one thing... Oh, that's a great blooper. Yeah. All right. So
they do.
Yeah. Eavesdropping among the customers does reveal some careful, perhaps coded conversations. And if you try to question the staff, they'll, of course, will reveal to you nothing and give you a very polite smile, unless you use the correct phrase. And that phrase is whatever you want it to be. But the book fetish actually is... Yeah. The book fetish actually is a quality bookshop, but it also serves as the front for the Temple of Painful Pleasures. Many of the customers, although by no means most, frequent the shop for its large selection of erotic literature, as well as to pay their 11 gold pieces to obtain a platinum headsman coin that serves as their entry fee to the temple, located in the alley just behind the shop. Most of these customers and the watch have no idea that the Temple of Painful Pleasures isn't just a high-end brothel, but it also is actually a real temple dedicated to Marina the Red. And that is the favored goddess of the Duchy of Morgau. Those that have paid their 11 gold pieces don't suspect that one of the gold pieces of their entrance fees goes for supporting prescribed cult, and their pleasurable activities serve as rites to the Red Goddess. So the Temple of Painful Pleasures is run by a priestess of Marina named Nerys Laragorn. So to get into the temple, you have to descend some stairs that leads to some double doors. And standing in front of those doors is a big, brawny Northman in breastplate who will open the door to anyone knocking, and he holds out his hand. Now, that's where the headsman's coins come in, because that's your entrance fee. And he expects you to place that coin perfectly in his hand with the axe facing up. And if you don't, you put some other coins in his hand, or you put the platinum headsman coin in the hand, but not properly. He'll take them, close the door, and you don't get access to the temple. Now, should you get past the entrance, it leads directly to the disrobing room, and then into the sanctuary proper, where the temple's guests and acolytes engage in the pleasurable activities, while Nerys and the bard Jazel watch from a rotating dais. So patrons may also purchase torture sessions as desired. This location features prominently in a adventure in the book called Flesh Fails. This is one adventure that you have to be very careful with.
Another thing to note about the temple, there is, in the Clockwork Book, there's a list of like their rules and like the things you can do, can't do, costs, stuff like that. So there's this whole sheet, like, list that you can kind of go through. And I can't remember if they say it's posted somewhere in the temple or not, but you don't want to be breaking those rules. But it's a neat place. I mean, obviously we're delving into some X card area here for certain parties. Probably not my party. They'd probably be all about it, but it's definitely something a little different that you're not going to find in your average D&D book. So when I read about this, I was like, what? This is in Zobeck?
I was blown away.
Yeah, I thought it was, I mean, like I said, if you're listening to us and not watching us, we're blushing a little talking about this, but it's funny and it's cool. And I'm sure there's plenty of people who are all about using this in your games. This is a great opportunity to step up that factor of your game if you're looking for it.
Yeah, I'm no prude. There's a lot of great content, that you can use as part of the Book Fetish and the Temple of Painful Pleasures. In fact, one of my PCs, their backstory is that they are business partners with Norris in the Book Fetish and the Temple of Painful Pleasures, because his god is Marina, and so it just made sense to work it in, because he acquired the Silk Scabbard, which we've talked about in previous episodes, as one of Zobeck's most prominent brothels. And so I just said, have fun with it, incorporate it into your backstory.
Yeah. At the very least, it's a great way to either punish or reward the horny bard of your party.
Sure. And it's also a great way to get the armor off of your PCs and the backpacks from off their backs. I am convinced that many of my PCs sleep in their backpack. It's great.
Right?
Yeah.
It's sleeping in my armor. So that's an interesting part of the Collegium District for sure. It is, I guess, the right place. I would almost think that this place should have been located in like the upper district or something like where all the nobles live. The fact that it's next to the school is kind of funny. There is another a couple other important places in the Collegium District, but one of I think that's probably going to play a central role if you're going to be there is the Hedgehog Tavern, because this is kind of the unofficial tavern of the school. This is where all the students and even the professors and stuff like that hang out, have their drinks. It's located just off Arcane Square, that trapezoid square circle location on the map. It's generally kind of a neat place because you watch, when you watch Harry Potter, you see like the magical broom sweeping and stuff. That's going on here. Magic keeps the hedgehog clean. There's unseen servants that pretty much make up the entire wait staff. Its owner is actually this retired mage named Radomir Schlink. He is actually an outcast from the Collegium. That he's kind of like befriended many of the apprentices and some of the masters, but his crime was diabolism, and he hasn't exactly been forgiven for that. So he is kind of banned from the Collegium itself, from the school. But he's friendly with enough people, and this is a great place to start your adventures based around the school itself. And this, I mentioned Death of the Mage earlier. This is the tavern where that begins. So I think the Hedgehog is a great place to put your party and get them that foot in the door. They can meet somebody there, do something for somebody there that's going to get their foot in the door into the Collegium itself.
And use Radomir as a kind of a father figure. I used him in a couple of games, and I played him as a father figure, wanting to set the students on the right path, and young adventurers who are just starting out on the right path as well. So he's a fun guy to play.
Yeah, I kind of thought of him as Dumbledore's brother, right? in the Harry Potter movies. Yeah. So nice enough guy with a sordid past, but not a bad person. Aside from the tavern and the school, the other kind of main centerpiece of the district is actually a temple. It's the Temple of the Celestial Dawn, which is sometimes referred to as the Moon Temple, but this is dedicated to Lada, the goddess of goodness, essentially. She is basically the healing goddess. If you have a life domain cleric in the group, this is good chance that she is their deity. She has other masks, in different parts of the world, but she's your typical healing goddess. The building itself is actually pink stone, and it actually glows in the early morning light, which is kind of neat. The temple itself, The priests use their healing powers for anyone who asks, not just people who pay. So it's a popular place, though people who can pay will to support them and whatnot. But even the poor wretched can go there for healing, or even just a poultice or something to help ease pain or things like that. So each morning there's just this line of petitioners that stretches down the street leading to the temple. And as soon as dawn breaks, the temple doors open and people can proceed in to, for their healing and things like that. There's like kind of this aroma of incense and beeswax candles, all sorts of stuff. And then the interior of the temple really lives up to the goddess's name. It's gold kind of covers all its statues and most of its pillars. Though some people say that the statues are solid gold, others say that they're just wood statues with illusions made them to look like gold and things like that. But this temple is actually one of the holiest sites in Zobeck because a lot of its avatar has actually appeared here on several occasions in the past. So a lot of people really favor this. I would probably go on to say that she is probably the second most popular goddess in the city outside of Rava, the gear goddess. And there's actually 2 temples for Lada in the city. The other being located in the temple district itself, which I believe is the main one, though their high priestess, I believe, generally resides at this one in the Collegium District. It's kind of her favorite spot. So the high priestess of the order actually, is located in Zobeck, generally in this temple. So I'm planning on using this place pretty heavily in my game. My wife's cleric is dedicated to the northern version of Lada. In my version of Midgard, it's actually the same god/goddess in where she is in the north. It's not as popular of a god, and they sent her here to seek help from their sister religion, sister priesthood, to help them build their temple bigger in the north. So she actually has to go see the high priestess and kind of I'm going to send her out on some kind of quest from there and whatnot, because if I remember correctly, priests and clerics of Lada generally have to go on some kind of holy mission, holy quest. So that's going to be required of her before they'll help her out. So really cool place, though. This is like just this really unique, like you see all this kind of stucco and yellow and brown buildings in the Collegium District. And then there's just this pink and gold building that's just standing there in the corner that just stands out, and super, super cool. Like I said, a lot of people like to play life domain clerics. So this is your place. This is your goddess. A lot is the god in Midgard for this, the main one anyways.
Yeah, and there's no reason why she can't make an appearance in your own adventures.
I think there's one other location worth talking about in the Collegium District, right?
Yeah, it's the Vigilant Brotherhood of Scribes. If you want some sort of analog, here's your nerds. The Vigilant Brotherhood is a place of careful thought where every word set down must be checked and corrected. Its members serve not only as the keepers of memory and history, but they also are the city's unofficial accountants, making the guild enormously powerful. The scribes there report earnings, losses, and taxes to the Lord Mayor through his Praetorian Council. They copy out all reports from visiting merchants, compile information from every visitor, and negotiate every bill of lading and sale. They could also have a lot of information about your adventuring party as well. Totally up to you. But the interesting part of these guys is they serve as part of Zobeck's secret police. They know the questionable folk, what people sell to the pawnbrokers, and also what they sell to the fences and the docks, what neighbors really think about one another, and so forth. Yet they are the most modest of folks. They have ink-stained fingers, simply cropped hair, and shoulders hunched from long hours at a writing desk or a standing desk. So, interesting group of guys. Who would know that a group of accountants also serve as spies for the secret police?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the Blue House previously, right? So when we talk about the secret police, it all connects back to the Blue House. So these are definitely people who are on that payroll and are they're doing important work. They're keeping the books. They're the bureaucrats, but they're also passing on information to the Blue House. So keep that in mind when your players use them or encounter them. There's always an ulterior motive there.
Yeah. So we're going to end our talk on the Collegium District with Winter's Kiss, which is the embassy of the Shadowfae. Now, I love this embassy, but what I especially love doing is moving it all over the place in Zobeck. Never in the same place twice. Now, officially in the lore, Winter's Kiss can be currently found at the court called Alchemist's Folly, which is located in the Zobeck Collegium District. So Winter's Kiss can currently be found at the court called Alchemist's Folly in Zobeck's Collegium. His Excellency, the Winter Court Ambassador in Extraordinary of the Shadow Realm, is Gleninen Thelmandrine. He moved Winter's Kiss here after he grew bored with his previous location in the Temple of Volin, or more specifically, within the Shrine of Ninkash. Winter's Kiss remained undetected for many long decades, but it's now visible and available to the public, even if it occasionally drifts up or down a few streets within the area. Now, the Shadowfae Ambassador has invited most of the gentlefolk of Zobeck to dine and discuss matters of interest, especially as it pertains to the looming succession to the west in the Grand Duchy, and also with respect to forming a wider alliance against the Dragon Empire to the southeast. So far, Zobeck's counselors and military leaders have not decided on any such alliance, but the Shadowfae are known for their deep and fathomless patience. They measure time in centuries, not months or years. Now, this ambassador features prominently in Courts of the Shadowfae. I used him heavily to kind of be the bad guy. He came to the council meeting, announced in front of the Lord Mayor and all of the councilors that he is here at the behest of the king, who was ruling at that time, that he's going to repossess Zobeck and all of the lands around it because of the disposition of the Strauss family. So have fun with this. Move that embassy around. Use him as a hook to help your players find a way to get to the Shadow Court.
There's a lot of connections as we kind of talk about these different places in Zobeck. You'll start to kind of pick up on these different themes and connections between different places. So make sure you kind of use some of that. You can use one location to get to another or to meet somebody from another, things like that. I haven't really dove much into, I don't know the Shadowfae as well as you do. You run Courts of the Shadowfae. I haven't. I feel like I need to, at the very least, read through the book because I want to know more about it. And I feel like that's like the sort, there's so much good stuff in there. We do have the Book of Ebon Tides now that's got a lot of info on it, but Zobeck's got so much deep connection to the realm of shadows that, these types of places can spawn off a lot of cool stuff. Well, I'm going to play with it too, because as I said, one of my players spent many, many years stuck in the realm of shadows. So he's going to have a connection there. And I definitely need to play with those types of things.
Yeah. Now, one thing I will say is I wish I had the Book of Ebon Tides when I was running Courts of the Shadowfae. There's a lot of great information in there that can help fuel your game. Courts of the Shadowfae is a sandbox adventure. It is just bits and pieces that you put together with your own material into a campaign. So definitely, if you're going to run Courts of the Shadowfae, do pick up a copy of Book of Ebon Tides because it'll make your game that much better and save you on a lot of prep as well.
We'll have to do a few episodes. I'm sure it's going to be more than one episode on the Realm of Shadows at some point, and kind of pick up the Book of Ebon Tides and run through some of that with everybody because, man, there's some good content there.
Yeah. So we're in Zobeck, the Clockwork City, and we're finally getting to the Gear District, Joe.
Yes. This district screams Zobeck more than anything else that we've talked about, in my opinion. I mean, it's the heart of Zobeck.
Yeah. Again, not a lot written on it, but there's just enough to get the gears turning in your head, pun intended. The Gear District lies on the city's western edge near the Dwarven Gate and is a region of tin and brass merchants, gear grinders, and gear forge repair shops. Here, one sees the greatest concentration of the city's gearforged and the best dwarven clockwork mages and engineers who there create wondrous things out of iron, brass, and other metals. The entire region revolves around the Steamworkers Guildhall and the Geargrinders Emporium, two structures built at enormous expense, and they are constructed using fairly modern techniques where they use iron for their support rather than big wood timbers. And there you can get all sorts of trinkets, tin toys, sharp knives,
all sorts of stuff.
Very high quality. But the greatest prizes offered in the Gear District are Gearforged bodies, which are given life each month through the combined efforts of mages, gear grinders, clockworker kobolds, and dwarven engineers, and all at a phenomenal expense. So if you've got a player that wants to be a Gearforged, it's going to cost them, and it's going to cost them a lot. Yeah. But despite the cost, there is one new Clockwork Watchman that emerges each month. And some believe that the Free City is slowly building an army of loyal Gearforged soldiers. Joe talked about in previous episodes how some criminals have been given the choice of the axe or becoming a Gearforged and committing their service to the city.
Now, there's a bit of a difference, too, when we talk about the Clockwork Watchman, too. I want to kind of lay down that there's the Clockwork Watchman, and then there's the Gearforged. And the Gearforged have life. They're a human or a dwarf or a kobold that have been transferred. Essentially, their soul has been transferred into these metal bodies, where the Watchmen were more of a... They were not given... they weren't a normal life. It's almost like they've put this elemental life into them. And they're more almost like autonomans, right? That just kind of serve. But there's like this whole movement in the city. I believe we talked about this in the past. There's a whole movement in the city to kind of free them because they can learn and they can gain a personality and learn to be free. So there is a whole thread there. But the Gearforged Watchman and your typical Gearforged player are not exactly the same thing. So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah. Now there's one option where you can get some private funding to become a Gearforged. However, the cost of it is to pay off the debt through service to a wealthy family, temple, or guild. So you can cover the costs of your new body, which, essentially lasts forever. So from time to time, you'll see dwarven mule trains from the Iron Crags bringing shipments of iron and unusual alloys, jewels for precision gearing, and offerings for the Temple of Voland. His shrine is in that district, and it clearly shows a dwarven influence. There's an ever-burning altar, an anvil that stand before his statue, and the dwarven acolytes often call his name in Dwarvish as they tap out a rhythm of his hymns and songs of praise. So this is the area where a lot of the mechanical stuff is created. I used it in one adventure as where a group of dwarves were creating a clockwork dragon, the one with multiple heads. Again, I talk about Courts of the Shadowfey a lot, but, I went to town with that adventure. When the ambassador came to repossess the crossroads, this was a secret project of the mayor to have some sort of weapon of mass destruction in their back pocket, just in case the Dragon Empire came knocking at the door. The Lord Mayor, she was fully ready to send this multi-headed clockwork dragon to the Shadow Realm to lay waste, or use it as a protection in case of an invasion as well.
That'd be so. I want to see that. I just want to see like an invading army just get laid waste by a 3-headed clockwork dragon. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was a fun encounter.
The Gear District is definitely the heart of the city. It's the Gear City, so there's a lot kind of going on there. And you mentioned the two kind of main groups that make it up: the Steamworkers Guildhall and the Geargrinders Emporium. And I think the Geargrinders Emporium maybe is one that we should touch on first, because It's kind of they're the ones who kind of run and create all the gears that run the city's clocks and the devices, all those small intricate wheels and balance arms, all that cool stuff, right? The cogs. We talk about the puffing bridge, the jaw bridge, right? That's all that's the Geargrinder's Emporium that does all that. So very, very important group in the city. Unlike the masters of the Order of the Arms and the Armory, who more concern themselves with the attack and defense and stuff like that, the Steamworkers Union concerns itself with motion and motive powers. They concern themselves with the tiny details, mechanical forms, and all that kind of stuff. We talk about the Strass clock tower, things like that. These are the guys who do that stuff. They build and repair memory gears, command plates, low light amplifiers, similar fragile and complex devices. And if you remember, the memory gears are the things that kind of go into Gearforge, and that's where the personality, the soul of the person, so to speak, resides in the Gearforged. So these elements almost always go to the Steamworkers in like a sealed brass cylinder or spheres or cases to kind of protect their secrets. So that could be a little something there where one of these cylinders or cases gets stolen, or maybe the group is paid to steal it or something like that, right? It's kind of like, play up the heist kind of scenario there with that. There's also an interesting part of this is kobolds actually compose about a third of this guild. The guild really values them, right? Their vision, their nimble claws. Their guildmaster is actually this pale kobold named Crickoak White. I think is how you say his name. Is that right? Crickoak?
Yeah.
So he's actually, they're actually led by a kobold right now. And he's like this, like I said, this pale kobold. He's old. He's got one living eye and one made of this fused and enchanted glass lens, which some say they could see spirits and auras, or even the intentions of those who visit him. So I kind of picture it like if you ever play with a Ouija board, you're supposed to be able to look through that little glass thing and see spirits and auras. Well, that's his eye, is the Ouija board piece. So he's a neat character, though. When I looked at this, I was like, man, I'm surprised. First thing I thought was, a dwarf is going to lead this guild. But no, a kobold of all, and the fact that there's dwarves and humans that are a big part of this guild, following a kobold is a very unique feature in Zobeck.
The big theme is here, never sell a kobold short. Don't take the kobolds for granted. They are super smart, and they are just as skilled as in the forge as any dwarf can be.
I would say it's kind of one big half of our gear district. The other is the Steamworkers Guildhall. So why don't you tell us a bit about that one?
Yeah, the Steamworkers Guildhall is the most powerful of the mechanical guilds. They are the group that creates the Everwound springs, hydraulic joints, and the boilers that give all constructs local motion. Its members also build the Gearforge workers and scullions, and they are a strangely pious group, universally devoted to Rava, and they count many dwarves among their ranks. So here's kind of the yin and the yang. You got the kobolds, and then you've got the dwarves of this guild. Now, there's old rumors that the guild originated as the Hammerfall clan, and their patriarch is still often a dwarf. The guild also has close ties with planar guardians of law, who sometimes visit to assist in animating a gear forge or to offer advice of making stronger, faster, wiser, and more durable creations. A few members of the guild claim that the worship of Rava itself came to Zobeck with these guardians from Ravatet, the plane of rusty gears. Now, the Steamworkers are one of the few guilds that accept both dwarves and kobolds as full members. Their guild hall is a workshop that rings with hammers and burns with hissing steam at all hours. Humans tend the forges during the day, kobolds by night, and dwarves at all hours. So think of this as your Wonka chocolate factory. Incredible things go on inside, and this is where a lot of the heavy lifting is done.
Yeah, the Steamworkers Guildhall is just, like I said, it's the second half of this district. These two places really make it up. And these guys are no exception to the quality of the work. They're intricate in creating the gear forged. They're intricate in all aspects of the city's mechanics. So definitely a worthwhile place, I think, for just players to visit in general, especially, if you have a Dwarven player or something like that. This would be a cool place to stop off and check out. One thing I always like to throw out to people too is don't forget, in Zobeck, the dwarves here are a different breed of dwarf. It's almost as if they're their own subspecies of dwarf. They're not. They're, I'm pretty sure they're hill dwarves by game mechanic standards, but their personalities and their way of life is so different. So when you're in the Gear District, I would highly recommend playing that up. Just the fact that you're going to see these dwarves and kobolds working side by side might blow some dwarf from the north out of the water. It would just boggle their mind. Then to see all the rings and stuff like that in their beards and things like that, it's going to be a very unique experience. And a good chunk of the dwarven population resides in the Gear District to begin with. Steamworkers Guild and the Geargrinders Emporium are both, just huge places to check off your list.
Yeah. This was the location of my Clockwork Dragon encounter in Courts of the Shadow Pit. I really played it up as just kind of a fun, intriguing place to be. Now, you talked about the differences between the Dwarves of Zobeck versus the Dwarves of the Iron Crags or the Northlands. So if you think of those dwarves as Vikings/Klingons, the Dwarves of Zobeck would be more like the Vulcans of, to kind of use a different comparison. They're very analytical.
I never thought of a Star Trek analogy for this, but that's perfect.
Yeah. They are the dwarves here are very analytical, very scholarly. More interested in figuring out how things work. So that's how I kind of think of them. That's how I've tried to, I didn't describe them like that in my games, but that's kind of how I played them, as very logical and more academic dwarves than your typical, I want to, butt heads and drink lots of mead type dwarf.
I feel like the kobolds are still the Ferengi though.
That's a good one. That's a good one. And guys, guys and gals, sorry for all the Star Trek analogies, but this is kind of the.
I've been watching a lot of Picard lately.
Yeah. Oh, great series. That's another show. The kobolds are very interesting creatures, as well as the Zobeck versions of dwarves. So play it up. Yeah. Have fun with it. It's a great way to surprise your players.
Yeah. I kind of want to actually lay down the whole Vulcan dwarf thing now and just start talking logic as a dwarf. Yeah. That would be so funny.
Yeah, instead, talk about mechanical engineering.
Yeah, exactly. So all these genius dwarves and kobolds and whatnot and Gearforged need a place to hang out after work, right? And there is a popular tavern in the Gear District called the Grey Friar Tavern. This is an interesting place. Now, if you are the kind of person who wants bad beer and worse food, this is your place. Because this place is actually run by a Gearforged, and he's got a couple other Gearforged on staff, as well as a few students from the Collegium. And they run this place, and the place it's located right near the Temple District, like right on the border of the Gear District and the Temple District. And it's extremely popular with followers of the Gear Goddess. It's a tavern and a restaurant. Again, we talked about how scholarly the dwarves and stuff are. That's the kind of clientele that comes here, is these highly intelligent people. It actually has a scribe and a gear kobold on staff to handle communications and repairs. The owner, Arbostar, he is one of the few Gearforged who seem to have this deep love of learning. And he's such a cool character because he's got like photographic memory. He claims to remember the entire contents of every conversation, claims to remember the contents of every conversation she ever has had, every book she's ever read, every face she's ever seen. So she's got this great depth of detail that she can recall. So if you ever do question her, she's going to remember like everything about every event. People have tried to kind of call her out on stuff, and they never can. She remembers everything. She literally remembers it all. She has this eye for nuance. And even the Watch will consult with her on inquiries about travelers and other stuff like that. I would have to imagine that even the Blue House would have to frequent with her and talk to her because of her just literally, for lack of a better term, a mind like a steel trap because she's Gearforged. So, but, you know, like I said earlier, one thing to keep in mind, and I'm going to quote this from the book, the food is terrible but cheap, and the beer is average and also cheap. So cheap food, not good. Okay beer, and also cheap. So not a bad place to go. And one thing to note there is that the priests of Rava do bless the tavern and its patrons each day at noon. So if you happen to be there at midday, these priests of Rava will come in and do a blessing and all that stuff. Which is, you know, again, another reason that the followers of Rava like to frequent this place as well. So they have their niche in the city, despite the bad food. Cool place, though. Like I said, I love how many, like, we've talked about a lot of taverns in Zobeck over these past several episodes, and each one really does have its own unique thing about it, you know, and this one's no exception. So I like this one. This just the idea of a gear forge. I could just see this gear forge woman behind the bar, polishing, you know, and just, you know, talking and recalling just every detail about his story. I would almost think that when she tells the story, she's like, you know, goes into too much detail about it, and people are like, all right, get to the point.
You know, maybe when you sit down and you're playing a non-gear forge, you know, maybe as a joke, Abrostar puts a mug of oil in front of you or something like that. You know,
God.
Yeah, but I figure the food is terrible because the chef is also a gear forge who can't taste their food.
Yeah.
You know, so
it's like that droid bar in the Mandalorian episode a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Precisely. That's a great way to put it. You know,
see, we're going Star Trek and Star Wars, everybody.
Yeah, here you go. You get it all here. You get medieval fantasy coupled with sci-fi. So, you know, there it is. But yeah, Joe's right. All of the taverns in Zobeck are unique in their own way. They're not monolithic. This is just, you know, more tools in your toolbox. That sort of tavern, you can take and pick that up and lift it and stick it anywhere you want. And same with, you know, many of the other establishments in Zobeck. Don't think they are only to be used in Zobeck. You know, you can just pick them out. You can change their names and do with them as you choose. So if anything, the book Zobeck Clockwork City is kind of a place for you to just kind of, again, strip it for parts, make it your own, and use it in any of your other adventures.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be in Midgard. I mean, Zobeck's like a city. I always picture Zobeck, and I love the book itself because I feel like it's a location you could pick up and drop into your own fantasy world if you really wanted to. And that's part of the reason we're spending so much time talking about Zobeck, because it's its own setting. Right? I mean, it is a sandbox unto itself. I feel like if you really wanted to, you could run, you know, 20 levels in this city and never have to leave it. I mean, there's so much content, so much to do in Zobeck. So that's why we're giving it a good amount of time, because it deserves it. It's worth it. And like I said, even if you're not going to play Midgard, Zobeck is a place you can pop into your own world.
Yeah. And, you know, Joe brings up a very interesting point. Everything that koboldpress publishes is technically setting agnostic. You know, they may be located in Zobeck, but Wolfgang and you know, all of his designers encourage you to work this content into anywhere that you adventure. All right. Well, why don't we wrap up this episode with a tour of Lower Zobeck. It's also called Ashmill.
Yes.
And I personally think that this is one of the coolest locations. And you'll find out in just a minute. So this district is kind of where the more economically challenged residents of Zobeck live. Quite frankly, the poor and common citizens live in Lower Zobeck just to try to make their way. Many who live in Lower Zobeck are unskilled worker in the fields or forest, charcoal burners, and dock workers. The district is lively with plenty of rivalries between various streets and families, and few of its troubles reach the eyes and ears of the Citadel or the other consuls. The most notable element of Lower Zobeck is the emphasis on the Green Goddess and her spheres. The Brewers' Sisterhood and numerous bakers, livery stables, and butchers all surround the district, and many consider it the city's pantry. It is a place known for automatons and diabolism. It is also a district of human needs and hunger, and perhaps it is no surprise that the cults of Marina also spring up in the district from time to time. So this, again, is where you can use society, or the wrongs of society, as an antagonist in your adventures.
Yeah, I mean, this is the area of Zobeck that's where the commoners are going to live. I'd imagine your players are definitely going to pass through this area, maybe be helping somebody from this area, be after somebody in this area. If the Gear District was the heart of the city, this is kind of the soul of the city, because it's where the majority of the people really live. Sure, there's the rich people and there's the mages and there's the temples and the government, but the people make up the city, and this is where most of them reside. And there are some interesting locations here. It's not just a bunch of homes and dwellings. There are places to see and visit here for your party. And I was just thinking about it as we were kind of coming into this to Lower Zobeck to talk about it. One place that's been missing off of the list of things that a party wants to go to in a city is a magic shop. And there is sort of a magic shop in Lower Zobeck.
Yeah.
It's called the Black Lotus. And it's found over near the border of the market district in the river. And it's kind of this plain storefront marked with this black half-timbered style. It's a 2-story building with this kind of simple wooden door next to a street-facing window on which the Black Lotus is printed in both Common and Draconic, and the character of the owner's native language. So it has these alchemically reinforced windows, which kind of like look into the shop, and it's kind of this curiosity shop as well, right? It's got these just neat, weird things, and people come here to just buy these trinkets, curious items from afar, and kind of stuff like that. But that's not what the shop has a reputation for. Those looking for magical assistance of any kind can find it here with just no questions asked, so long as they can meet the price of the painted man. If you're looking to get an item identified or something like that, this could be a place to go. If you're looking for just some kind of strange item, this is a great place to go and check out. And it's just kind of, I like that they describe it as a curiosity shop. One thing that I kind of want to do with this is, the list of common items, like common magical items, things like the Cloak of Billowing and stuff like that. This is a great place for those type of items. If you got those low level characters that just kind of want something cool, they don't have a lot of money, this could be a great place to set common, maybe a 1 or 2 uncommon items in there. This is your shop. Like, you can do some really cool stuff. There's isn't there some kind of like weird haunted voodoo doll magic item that's like this creepy girl doll or something like that? Like, put one of those here. This is the place for that item. Like, there's some cool stuff. There's the Vault of Magic that koboldpress came out with, all those magic items. Look through there, man. You can throw some cool stuff from that book in the shop. Now, and in the Clockwork City book, they actually have a map of this entire shop, broken out by room with details in every room, from the storeroom to the sitting room, the bedroom, all that stuff. We don't need to go into all that detail here, but there is a full-on map and details about the shop. So if your party ends up there, maybe your party gets hired to steal something from there, things like that, you've got a map for it. And I haven't read through every adventure in the Clockwork book. But generally, if there's a map, there's probably an adventure that ties to this location, and they refer to it, and that's why there's a map with detail there. So definitely worth checking out.
You go there to interact with the painted man, and Yeah, what a great character the Painted Man is. He's this tall, fat man who smells of rare spices. And I wouldn't really consider it a bad smell, but, just kind of a nice smell. And that's the easiest way to physically describe the Painted Man. No one knows his true name. It remains a secret. And the nickname, the Painted Man, has spread throughout the city and kind of, stuck. He wears silk robes embroidered with strange symbols and always paints his face in a foreign style. He's friendly and outgoing, but he's also evasive. And he speaks without a trace of an accent. He reveals little while observes intently. So he may spend some time as you're walking around his shop just watching you, seeing how you interact, what items you interact. He's very interested in, absorbing as much information as possible. Most claim that the Painted Man has lived in Zobeck for decades. There's one story that calls him an exiled member of a cabal of eunuch arcanists from a distant land. They once served at the emperor's court, but fled into exile after a failed coup attempt. And supposedly, the Painted Man is one of only 8 surviving conspirators, biding his time as he peddles his powers and continues his dark studies. It's an open secret that if you need magical assistance of any kind, from arcane to divine to even illegal sorts of dark sorcery, place to go is the Painted Man shop. He will always help for a price. Common magic may require money or goods, but the more potent effects demand more outlandish costs. So, if it requires some sort of material component, he's going to require you to provide that. He also likes to trade. And if it's like a very expensive spell, it's like, hey, I'll trade you for a Lich's phylactery. And I know where you can find one. But the one thing about this guy is he may not ask for payment immediately, but he always collects. I see this guy as a cross between Don Corleone and Baron Harkonnen from the Dune books. When I play him, I'm going to have him float around, maybe talk in Don Corleone's voice, and just have fun with it. I don't know if I'm going to use Don Corleone's voice, because the book does say he speaks without a trace of accent.
Yeah, for sure. I like it. It's a kind of a cool idea. As soon as you said that, I was getting ideas because I'm an Italian New Yorker, so I could totally pull off Don's voice. Right? I like it. That's a neat idea. I'm sure there's other magic shops, by the way, in Zobeck. This is just the one that they kind of call out in the book and talk a bit about and have some content around. So there's no reason you can't have other magic shops, but this one definitely has a really cool feel. However, you mentioned the Don. So since we're going to talk about the mafia, you know what every city needs? You know what every good city needs? A good bookie. Right. And they have one in Lower Zobeck. It's called the Cracked Coin. And it's basically just this, little cozy building, 2-story building. It's a money lending establishment, as we'll call it. It's a money lending establishment. Sounds very legit, doesn't it? It's built in the same style as the other businesses in Lower Zobeck. The inside, however, includes several secret rooms, including a hidden vault and a sub-basement in addition to the business space on the first floor and a living space. Now, again, this is another location that they put a map in the book for, with numbers for all the different rooms. There's a lobby, accounting room, the vault, the barracks, the lounge, the terrace, the apartments, the private vault, the kitchen, and the black storage. There's a whole bunch of defenses on this place, glyphs of warding, and all this stuff. And I love it because, maybe I talk about these too much. Maybe it's because my players have just absolutely devastated my mind as a DM. But this is where we're doing a heist, man. We're breaking into the vault, and not the regular vault, but the private vault. That's where the good stuff is. If you wanted to do something with, if you wanted to take, what's the official Wizards one? Not Mad Mage, Dragon Heist. You want to take Dragon Heist and port it into Zobeck instead of Waterdeep? This place is it, man. There's stuff to do here. This place is super, super cool. So Yeah, I want a heist. I want some Ocean's 11 happening at this place because it's definitely primed for it, right? There is this woman there. Her name is Cassandra. She's this beautiful red-haired woman in like her late 20s, and Cassandra seems to be like just this confident and sweet and easygoing, easy to get along with person. She basically kind of uses that to her advantage. It's really a facade for her job, which she's just this cutthroat businesswoman. And she works with this guy named Ivan, who's this shifty-eyed, oily, self-important guy. He's the owner. He's condescending and, all that. And she basically just wants to take over. So there is some conflict between the two of them there that work together that you could even use to your advantage if you wanted to for that, Ocean's 11 style heist. So I think they actually have a scenario written in here called Betrayer Within. So there's definitely, it's primed. It's primed. This place is a powder keg ready to blow, man. I love this location.
Yeah. And the Black Lotus, there's 2 adventures in the Clockwork City book called Rebuilding a Good Man and Ripper, which the Painted Man is featured prominently in. Those are 2 of the best locations in Zobeck. But there's one more, the Rampant Roach.
There is.
Yeah. Yeah, the Rampant Roach is on the border of Lower Zobeck, just a few blocks away from the Crown Square. And it stands one of the few kobold-oriented restaurants outside the kobold ghetto, and also the Dock District as well. The owner, a kobold named Skirtal, insists on opening his restaurant outside of the ghetto to spread his joy of traditional kobold cuisine to the whole city. So local kobolds working in town frequent the Rampant Roach for lunch and dinner. Unfortunately, non-reptilian clients remain a rarity, and Skirtal barely makes enough to keep up with his expenses. The doors open early in the afternoon and stay open just before dawn, but the business is light until well after dusk. The ambience is cozy and dark. Skirtle warmly welcomes anyone who enters. Food is cheap, but filling and comes in generous proportions if the patron can stomach kobold meals. Now, I want to play the Rampant Roach as a 3 Michelin star restaurant with a chef with Skirtle, kind of modeled after Gordon Ramsay, yelling at his crew and throwing pots and pans around. But I also want to use it as a kickoff. I've been dying to run a food-based adventure where all the food comes to life. You literally, when you go to that restaurant, have to fight your meal before you can eat it.
Oh, that's brilliant. Dude, we need Totem Beast 4 now, and we can do animated food.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess you would use like an animated object stat block for it, but seriously.
Oh, sure. Imagine like a Jello ooze or a butter ooze. I'm just dying to...
Lamb chop, that's an animated club, essentially.
Yeah. I'm just dying to run the 11 Hells Kitchen type adventure. And the Rampant Roach is going to be my jump-off point, for sure.
Yeah. And by the way, do not steal that name. That's copyrighted. That's Clay's name. He's copyrighted that. Do not steal the 11 Hell's Kitchen. That's too good.
Yeah.
Too good, man. So one more thing on the Rampant Roach, just like the other locations we just talked about, this one also does feature a map, with pinpoints and stuff like that. So I believe this one also is featured in an adventure. So you do have a full map in the book with, locations and stuff like that. It's not a very big place. It's, 4 rooms. It's 2 upstairs and then the cellar. So, but it is there for you in case you do need it. So, but there are a couple other locations in Lower Zobeck, one of which is, I think, maybe a very important one because we've kind of talked about it a little bit in the past, and this is where it's located. And that's the Spyglass and Cartographers Guild. And if you recall, the Spyglass Guild is really, they do stuff, but it's kind of a front for the Blue House's secret police. These guys act as a secret police. So you will run into them in different adventures. But the building itself is this 2-story guild house, bunch of windows on it. And on its main floor, it's got these high ceilings, open workrooms, well lit, all that stuff. And there's these set up basically everywhere. So there's these outer surfaces that are all opaque and to prevent curious passerbyers from peering in. So you can see out, but nobody can see in, which is kind of cool. And on the main level, there's these 20 permanent drafting stations that fill this huge central room. And there's space for more if they needed it. But basically, no matter the hour, there's at least 10 diligent cartographers. They're hard at work, and they're copying often stolen maps. They're drafting floor plans. They're mapping out vaults, discovered tunnel systems. They're maybe sometimes drawing legitimate maps for clients. And the whole time, they're always keeping this careful eye on the entrance. And then there's the upper level, which contains like lodging for guild members who might travel on business, things like that. The guild leader will stay there. The level also houses guard rooms, special equipment, supply rooms. Erspert is the guild master, and there are private chambers up there. And she shares with her second in command, Gregory Caldos. So that's her second in command. But keep in mind that Erspert, she really only answers to the Blue House. So she, because she's the head of the Spyglass Guild, she is a spy as well. But she has to report up to the Blue House, her only upper, so to speak, in the guild. The guild house also has a secret basement that contains this document-filled vault, a treasure room, and it's a few kind of strong and magically shielded cells and a scrying-protected meeting hall. So again, this is one of those places that's just begging to be broken into by an intrepid party to retrieve something. But be careful, because you do not want to end up on the wrong side of the Spyglass Guild and end up in the basement of the Blue House. That is a place where people go to disappear.
Yeah.
So, a very interesting way. I mean, like I said, you think, the Cartographer Guild, they make maps. Yeah, they're doing a lot more than that there. There's some shady business going on there for the good of the city, for the greater good. I like to present it to my players as this great free city where, there's this great capitalism and people can go and, it's like New York City, right? If I can make it there, I can make it anywhere. It's this wonderful place where people go to find a new life. But there's this other side to it that is just shady and underhanded and, corrupt government and cults and gangs and, money changing hand. There's so much going on there. And the Spyglass Guild is playing a big part of that, which is weird. It's not the guild you would think is doing that, and they are. So I wanted to definitely call out this one particular location because I could see it being an important part of an adventure and an important part of the city. Yeah, totally cool place. I kind of look at it as like, Q's workshop. Lots of fun, intriguing stuff are in that secret basement. So one last place to talk about, right? What do we got?
Yeah, the Wheatsheaf Tavern. Let's end it in a beer hall. The Wheatsheaf Tavern is a favorite smuggler's tavern and second home of anyone who needs a thug now and then. The Wheatsheaf nightly serves up strong beer and spicy food with a healthy side of information, especially from the Red Cloaks or the Cloven Nine. The collection of rogues, sharpers, cultists, assassins, fences, and cold-eyed hard cases who drink at the Wheatsheaf is ever-changing but always dangerous. Now, despite its clientele and infernal connections, the Wheatsheaf remains a non-violent place, surprisingly enough. And most of the time. The tavern provides a secure place to conduct public and private business or just to have a meal, and that ends if people are watching for a knife in the back or fear the watch will show up. So when the violence starts at the Wheatsheaf, it's never a simple brawl. It's murder. Somebody dies. And the killer had best have powerful friends or excellent protection because the biggest gangsters in Zobeck prefer that the Wheatsheaf operate under a flag of truce and they look askance at anyone threatening that peaceful place to gather and conduct business. So again, one more place where if you need a deal done, Wheatsheaf Tavern is where you need it to be. if you need to hire a thug to help you out with something, another option for your players to visit the Wheatsheaf Tavern. So, love ending on a tavern. Like I said, I think Lower Zobeck is the most interesting part of Zobeck, period.
Yeah, it's got a lot of cool places. I like that we finally that the Wheatsheaf also touched on the Red Cloaks. We've talked about the Cloven Nine a little before, being one of the gangs. The Red Cloaks is another popular gang in Zobeck. So I like the Wheatsheaf is kind of very similar to the Bathhouse, right? It's a place where different people can come. It's neutral ground. There's several places like that in the city. There are these neutral ground places where deals can happen and information can be had, and a relatively safe location surrounded by relatively unsafe individuals.
Right.
So another neat place to visit. But Lower Zobeck in general, right, is just this. Like I said, I feel like it's the soul of the city because there's a lot that could be happening there. I feel like it's just one of those places you have to go to, you have to visit, you have to send a party but I mean, every place in Zobeck is kind of like that. I think at this point, it's like you'd be missing out if you didn't touch in every district at least at some point, right? So
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I agree.
Now, Joe and I keep mentioning that we are going to do an episode on the gangs of Zobeck and the cults and secret societies of Midgard in general. I promise you we will get to it. It's going to have to be in a future episode, but we will get to it. If you want to read up on it yourself, there's good write-ups in the Clockwork City book on the gangs of Zobeck. And last episode, we told you about the book Cults and Secret Societies that koboldpress has released. It's only available in PDF right now, but you can buy the hardcover through DriveThruRPG. That is also to me, one of the must-have books if you really want to have some good antagonists in your games.
Yeah, I just got that in hardcover. I just ordered that a few weeks ago, and it came in. It is so good. So good.
Yeah.
But yeah, we will definitely have to touch on the gangs and the cults. I think we know a guest we want to have on to talk about that. So we'll figure out when, and we'll get that scheduled. We're going to do one more episode though on Zobeck itself. We'll touch on the last couple of districts, which is the market, the temple, and the pastures. And we'll wrap up our series on Zobeck and move on to some more parts of Midgard, which I'm very, very excited to do. So stick with us and we'll get there.
Well, that's our show. I hope you enjoyed it. Joe, how do people reach you?
Well, you can find me on GM Toolbox on YouTube, as well as TikTok and Facebook and Instagram. And I'm on Twitter at GM_Toolbox. And of course, you can find me over on the Midgard Adventures Discord server at GM Toolbox there. How about you?
You can reach me on the Midgard Adventures Discord. I'm at Clayton Thompson, and that's Thompson without a P. That's also my Twitter handle as well. Let me tell you a little bit about the Midgard Adventures Discord server. It's an independent, fan-based cooperative group that is affiliated with koboldpress. It's a great place to talk Midgard lore, share tips and tricks, answer questions, and we also offer organized play games, both online versions and some IRL groups in a few locations around the United States. Our community is open to everyone, particularly those new to Midgard and role-playing games in general. We also have a dedicated channel for That Midgard Show on the server where you can post a comment and talk about the content of the show. You can also hang out there with other fans of Midgard in our mead hall or all the other channels available. There is adventure channels, there's lore channels, you name it. So there's an invite in the server available down below, and for those that listen to us on podcast, in the description. If you have a comment, join us on the server and comment on content on the show. Tell us how you use the lore, and if there's anything unique that you bring. We are gathering a bunch of comments, and we will have a segment on a future show that will read comments, also answer questions that our viewers have had. So check us out.
Yep, and then we also have our Twitter account for the Midgard Show. It's at That Midgard Show on Twitter, so make sure you hit us up there and follow us. And, if you like our show, please click on the like button, subscribe to our channel. We're also on all major podcast platforms, so please subscribe, leave us a comment and a 5-star review if you can. We've absolutely loved all of your feedback and your comments. We really appreciate it, so thank you for supporting us. And, even better, just spread the word about That Midgard Show. So remember, guys, as Wolfgang Barr says,
strip it for parts and make it your own. Thank you for joining us. Take care, everyone.